Welcome to Module 8. In the previous module, we did a logo design for a fictional brand called Right. We created different samples. We did our sketching, we did our mood board creation, and a few more things that were very interesting to work on. In this module, we'll be doing more design application. We'll be creating our logo presentation in Canva. We'll be creating a social media flyer in Photoshop and creating some mockups to illustrate our designs. And finally, we'll be looking at how to create some icons in Adobe Illustrator. Let's dive in. So now we have our canvas in Canva, and we're using Canva because it's easy to pick out images and just work with them on our page, other than having to download and bring them into Photoshop or the other softwares. So here we have our canvas, and to get this size, you simply go into File, Create New Design. You can see the size 1920 by 1080. If you search for presentation, you see that over here. So the first thing we actually need to do is figure out the content for our presentation. And when you're working with presentation, you need to know the contents that you're working with and then develop the skeletons for your design. So let's go into our document here and say logo presentation. So fast forward, I'll fill in a few of the sections that we need to add and we'll come right back into the code. See you soon. Welcome back. So as you can see here, we have our cover page, title page, about brand, ideation process, competitor analysis, our mood board, our logo in view, our brand colors, our typography, and then some images and mockups. So these are the sections that we'll be using in our presentation to show our clients how we came about the logo, the idea that we have, and also to show them the logo in action. So we'll show them some images, we'll show them some mockups, and we would present that to the client. Now, when you're working with presentations generally, you usually would go through this step of figuring out what all the sections are. So do we need a title page? Do we need a section that says talks about the brand? Do we need a section that talks about the team? Do we need a section that talks about analytics and what they've achieved so far? Do we need a section for whatever sections we need? We outline them. And next up, we fill the contents. So again, I will see you in a minute. Welcome back. Now we have a bit of the information that we need for our presentation. We have about the brand. Write is a content writing agency that specializes in crafting compelling copy, blog posts, and website content for businesses looking to boost their online presence. Again, we have our ideation process. We have a few things that we need here, our competitor analysis, our mood board, and we would start imputing the rest as we go. So let's go into our documents. Let's make sure that we're naming our documents. So right, logo presentation. I've uploaded our logo and a few of our assets into Canva, so we'll bring that in as we go. So this is our cover page. We need our cover page. We need our title page. We need our about page. Let's start with those. On our cover page, let's bring in some text and say logo presentation. So first thing we're going to do is just build out the layouts that we're going to work with, and we'll come back and begin to start adding a few visual elements to make it look a lot more interesting. So let's say this is class project. So in your own work, you put your name here, presented by your name. So let's say class projects. Let's make this one a little bit smaller. So we have that hierarchy in place. So let's make this 24. Bring this all the way here. Now let's move to the next page, which is our title page. Let's bring in some text and say logo design. Okay, we need that to be logo design project for rights, a fictional brand. So this is just a title page. Let's make this 28 and reduce the width. Let's bring that to the center. So we have our title page. Now we need our about us page. So text, let's say about brand. This is our title. Let's put this somewhere here. Let's bring in some text and bring that here. Now the size of our title and the one for our text will not be the same. So let's make that distinction. Let's bring this here. And let's go in here quickly to grab our text. So writes is a content writing. Let's bring that in. Just come back to our page and paste that here. Let's left align it so that we can properly align it to our title. Make that smaller, and I'm leaving out all the spaces for other elements that we might want to include. So all the spaces over here for extra elements where necessary. So we have our about the brand. What's our next section? Let's go into our document to preview that. So our ideation process, and let's also change the contents. So okay, here we have 3 bullet points. So instead of using this same template here, because remember, repetition is very key. We talked about that in our design principles. So you need to make sure that if you're aligning left, if you're going to align center at some page, it must be because of some extra need. And same here, if you're changing the layout, it must also be because there's an extra need. Here we have 3 different bullet points. We don't just have a summary. So here we need to create 3 sections that holds our little subheadings and the contents. So let's bring in the first one. Who is right targeting? Yes. Let's bring that in. Same thing, we're using Alt and you click and drag to duplicate and do the same here. We need 3 sections. So let's go back into our document. Let's copy the heading here. What keywords best describe the brand? Let's go in here and paste that in as well. So question mark, do not forget that. Let's go in again and look at how do we want to be perceived. Select that. Let's go back and do the same thing. How do we want to be perceived? And now we also need to bring the content. Well, don't forget the question mark. Let's select all of these and duplicate, bring them down. And let's start bringing in the content. So let's go here and copy the first one, small businesses, entrepreneurs and marketing agencies. Let's do that here. Paste. Let's make sure we're removing the bullet points. So select that, click here, click again, and remove it. Let's go back to our documents. What best describes, or keywords best describe the brand? Small businesses, entrepreneurs, and marketing agencies. So copy that, bring that in, and paste that here. Again, oh, think we have some marketing agency. We have the same thing here. That's not correct. We'll go into our whiteboard to correct that. Let's select all of these and make sure that we're removing the bullet points. We can remove the bullet point of this one in advance before we go check. Now let's go into our mood board. I've created a few things here that we can look through. Again, all of these are extra details. Made some decisions over here as well. So let's go in and see what keywords do we have that here or in our actual documents. So what we have is the same here. So let's go up and find our keywords: creativity, professionalism, words, warmth, and trust. So let's go here and paste that into here. So now we have that as well. But remember, we talked about hierarchy in our principles of design. We talked about contrast. And we need to create some contrast between these two, right? Although we're creating the skeleton, we need to start adding those little building blocks so that we can come back and layer more ideas onto them. So one thing we can easily do here is make our titles bold. And instantly, we have some contrast between the title, the subtitles, and the body copy. So let's select these and move it up a bit so that we're not too far. Let's group them. Let's group them. Let's group this as well. And also group this. And select all three and make sure that we're positioning them correctly. Select all three, position. We have our options here, tidy horizontally. So now let's move on to our next page. And here we have our competitor analysis. Okay, you can simply duplicate that. Let's go in to this section and duplicate this page. Remember our repetition as much as we can. Let's just have a few templates and repeat them. So let's bring this here. Let's change this to this. So unless there is a need, maintain the same style. So competitor analysis, competitor analysis. Let's align that. Let's make sure. Still come back and use a few tools in Canva that will help us work better. And let's have our mood board as well. Let's bring this here. Let's do that over here. But okay, let's also duplicate this page so that we don't have to create new text boxes. So here we have our mood board, and here we have our contents for the mood board. And let's make sure we're properly aligned. And then we would also have more sections. The more sections we haven't created. So we have our logo in view, brand colors, and typography. So let's create those pages. So we have our logo in view. Let's use something similar to this so that we have a full page that says logo in view, and then we go into the logo. So we bring that here and say, let's make this centered for now. Say logo in view. So when we say logo in view, we'll have other pages after it, say like 1 or 2 pages. One of them will be showing the different variations, and another one will show the idea of our logo before we move to the brand colors and typography. So we'll have 2 pages. We'll have one here for those two. And then we have another page for our brand colors. So let's copy this, go all the way to that and paste this here and say our brand colors. We'll need to bring in some shapes to illustrate those colors. Let's use circles. So let's make this smaller. So you can see the different layouts we're using for different sections and how we're maintaining the structure that we started with, although we're adding new layers to it. So we duplicate this. We have 3 colors to work with. And we do this. So let's say we have those 3. And then underneath we'll have the color codes. So code 4. I need all of these in small letters. Code. Remember what we're creating is the skeleton. So we have code. Let's make sure this is centered. We do the same here. We have code. And then the same here as well, we'll have code. Let's enter this. And let's go in here. We need 3 sections like this. Let's ungroup these so that we can pick them out. Ungroup. Let's ungroup. Now we have our sections individually. We can copy them and bring them all the way here and paste them. So we need one of each to have, put this here, bring this as well, we put this here, make sure they are aligned. Alignment is very important. We select all of these, we put this here, make sure that they are aligned vertically, aligned horizontally. And now we'll just do a bit of explainer into the role that color plays in the entire branding. So create another page. This is for typography. So let's bring in this and paste this here. And we'll have typography. I have our typography here. And something similar to what we have with our brand colors. We'll have a font that highlights the one we used for our logo type so that the company knows what fonts we used. And then we'll have another one that can be used paired with that one and can be used for things like body copy and text and all of those extra things. So instead of using circles in this case, we can use capital letter A and a small letter A. Now we'll make these big and put this over here. We need to align them properly. Same way in our brand colors as well. Let's make sure that things are aligned well. Let's select all of these. Position and position them to the left. Select all of these and position them as well to the left. And then for these, we'll make them aligned left. Because now we're aligning things to the left, so we need to make sure that we're maintaining that. Let's make this bold to create that hierarchy again. This is the font name and this is the description. Let's make sure we're doing that here as well. Let's make this aligned left and we make them bold. And after this, what do we have in our document to add? Here we have images and mockups, and this is where we can play around. We can add pictures, put our logo on pictures, bring in our mockups and work with all of that. So for now, let's look at what we have holistically. You can click on this grid view here, and when we click on that, give it a few seconds to load. It shows us everything that we have all together. We can see our different pages and we can see the flow from cover all the way to the end. Here, let me add a page for an image. We can add one more for another image or mockup, and we can add, say, a final one. So we have something that looks like this. Remember, we're taking our clients from beginning to end, and we're walking them through our thought process. The same way if you're working on any kind of presentation design, you're taking whoever is reading and you're walking them through a process and you're guiding them from start to finish. So let's go back into our documents and start looking at some different things that we did. Now, with our titles, you can see that we've maintained the consistency of having them up to the left. In some cases, we might need to change them. For example, in our competitor analysis, we'll need to bring in the logos of the competitors and we'll arrange them onto the page. So we might make a few changes in that regard. But here you can decide, for example, I don't want my titles to be aligned to the left. I want them to be aligned center, right? Because again, we're going to work with the different ideas we have and the different things that we know, what we're exposed to design-wise. And you would make those decisions because everything we're doing here, we're making design decisions. Do I want to align it to the left? Do I want it to be in the center? Do I want to align it to the right? Do I want the body copy to be close? For example, do I want to bring this up closer? I maintain some space there, and whatever elements I'm bringing will fill this place. And depending if I need more space, I can move this up a little bit, but make sure I have enough space there to ensure that all my other elements can breathe I'm not choking things into the same little spaces. Now, I'll show you a tool that you can use in Canva that would help you. Remember, we used our ruler in Adobe Illustrator. We have that here as well, and we can use that to bring in guides and use those guides to sort of ensure that our title is starting from the same place on this page to this page and this page and onwards that way. So let's go into File and go into Settings. And then in Settings, you can see Show Rulers and Guides. The shortcut for that here is Shift and R. Remember, in Adobe Illustrator it was Command R, but if we use Command R here, it would refresh our browser. So Shift and R. If you click here, you can see our rulers, and the same thing applies. If we go in and pull from our ruler, we have a guide. If we go in and pull from our ruler, we have a guide. And now we can go to from page to page and ensure that everything starts. You can see that it makes everything neat. So it's not that you have the title starting from this side, and then in the next page you have it tilted forward, and in the next page you have it tilted forward again. You have everything all in a good structure, organized properly. Remember when we were talking about organization of information and making sure things are neat and clean in such a way that helps communicate your message. So we can change the layout here. Like I said, we can choose to move these up. We can choose to rotate this and say we want our titles to be rotated this way and this one. And this way, we would need to go into all the other pages and apply that as well. So say we want this to be here and we want everything else to be lower here. We turn off our ruler, Shift R, remember? And now we have something that looks like this. In this case, it doesn't really work, but for example, you can say you want this to be here and bring this down, which is a way that that can work. And say we had another section and we have that here. And this is something that could work. We can bring in a line and say we want that line to be rotated 90 degrees. And move that all the way here, just to create that movement from top to title. And since we read from left to right, once we're at our title, we continue reading this way. So now I'm going to go into this design and make a few design decisions, bring in a color, add a few things, and I'll walk you through the different decisions that I made and why I made them. So I'll see you very shortly. Welcome back. So I've gone in and made some design decisions. I've brought in some elements, I've brought in colors, I've added some few pages, and I'll now walk you through the design decisions that I made. So let's go in, and you can see here already we have 13 pages. This is one mockup. I'll be showing you how to work with mockups in Photoshop. I will bring that here as well to complete our design. You can see our pages here. Most of the things are still sort of in the same places. You can see this layout. This layout has changed because of the logos that were brought in. You can see our logos. You can see the logo page here. You can see our colors. You can see the typography, and you can see some image that holds our logo. So let's go in, starting from our first page, our cover page. Let's turn off our grid view. Now we have same thing like we did our logo presentation. I'm using our blue, the brand color, and I've also added this to just add some spice to it. And this are 3 elements. I have one circle, I have another circle, but then I could also create that just using one circle. So essentially I would just increase the width and then make the width white, as you can see here. So, and then I also added a line to link both. So I added a line, and in Canva, you can connect this here. Remember, when we're using Photoshop, we can adjust this however we please, or when we're using Illustrator. So you can select this, bring that here, select this, and connect that here. And then you can come in to change this from straight to curved. And that's exactly what I did. I just adjusted the center dots to work around that. And now from our cover page, we have an image showing go this way. Remember movements in our design principles. Let's go to our next page, our title page. Nothing really spectacular here. We have our text and we've made sure to make this bold and make it blue so that we have that distinction. On our next page, we have our about. We have pretty much the same structure like we had prior, but I've added some visual elements to add some life to the design. So we have our title, we have our text, but I brought in an icon to illustrate about the brand. I brought in some illustration over here. I brought in two circles and I've brought in an image with the background removed to sort of create that welcoming feel. And here, these elements are just there to sort of guide the viewer's eyes. Remember movements again. So you move from here forward, you see an element is pointing down and you're reading left to right. You move all the way to your right and you see this before you move to the next page. So the next page, we have our ideation process. This is repeated. Remember, we're repeating some elements from page to page to ensure that the viewer knows what to expect. We're not bringing one layout here, another layout here, and just changing those layouts every page because we can confuse the viewer that way. So we have the same elements. Now this is longer text, so it means that this has moved further and this line is longer, but we've maintained the same structure. Let's go back here. Let's move forward. We've maintained the same structure. Our titles are bold and blue, and then we have our text beneath. Let's move to the next page. We have our competitor analysis. There you go. Let me adjust this and move this back a bit. Now this should be aligned center. So I need to make sure of that. Don't just guess it or leave it to chance. Make sure that it's properly aligned. We can cancel this. And now we have our explainer here, just something brief to show the client, okay, so I looked at your competitors and this is my deduction from that. Here we need to make this blue. So here you can see a few things that need to be changed. Let's make this blue. And let's keep going. We have our mood board. We have, again, the same structure. We have our icon, our title, and our lines and circles. We have our brief explainer here, and we have our mood board over here. So the clients can see this is the mood board. Does this really highlight what we're trying to achieve or not? So another thing that you will share with the clients is the mood board. And just to know, does this align with the mood of the brand? So let's move further. We have our logo in view. And remember, we brought this element as well. There's nothing to look down to. So we're only using this to say go right. Let's keep going. And here we have our logo type. We have our logo mark. We have the different variations. And we have our explainers over here. So let's move further again. Remember I said our logo in action would have all those different elements. Here we're explaining what this is for. This is just a circle with borders, no fill. And we're using a dotted, and we're using dashed border. We have same thing here. This is one line, this is another line, and this is one line. And we have our text here explaining. Let's move further. You can see our brand colors and see what we've created. You can see the different colors, the different color codes, and you can see the explainers here. Again, we maintain the same structure. There's nothing again to particularly look down to. Once you're done here, you move down and read all the way to the right. And let's go to the next slide. We have our typography, same style, same elements. We have our same colors. And then if we move to the next page, we have an image. Now we've taken one image, another one from our mood board. We brought that here. We've highlighted our logo and we have some text at the bottom to sort of replace the tagline, right in the future of your brand, to just show what it would look like on an image. And if we move further, we can see that we have a business card that we've created for the brand. And so essentially what I'm showing you here are, let's go to the grid view so we can see all of it. Essentially what I'm showing you here are decisions that I've made in creating my design and my presentation, right? In all of these, you would find the design principles. You would find the alignment to the left. We have our alignment to the left, and it's very essential that this is a straight line, and that's why we have our guides, right? We have our repetition to make sure that each page, each title, we're using the same style. We're not just changing things around every time so that the viewer knows what to expect. So once you see the first page and you've looked at it, when you get to the next title page, you have an idea because you saw the last one. When you get to the next one, you have an idea because you saw the last one. We're not making any drastic changes. So we also have our hierarchy. So we have our bold text up top, all capital letters to show that this is the title and this is the body text. So let's move further. Same thing here. We have our title, it's all caps. We have our subtitles, which is smaller. It's not all caps, but then it's bold to show that this is another section to view. And we can move from section to section to section. And all the way here, we changed our alignment to center because we now have bigger elements to show. But here we've maintained the same style and the same structure essentially. So let's have a view at this again. You can see all our pages. So before you start your own presentation design, you might go into Pinterest to see a few ideas, see how things are laid out, and just get a few options around what you can create. And you come into your tool. Remember, it's not necessarily about the tool. We can create this in Photoshop using our artboards to create different pages. We can also create this in Adobe Illustrator using our artboards to create different pages. You need to understand that the tool is just there to help you work around the different ideas that you have. The tool is not going to make the design. So tools don't make the designers. The designers use the tool to create what they have in mind and just ideas that they've put together based on whatever projects they're working on. So in the next video, we'll do a social media design and just show you again how to layer some of these elements to create another style of design that would be useful in your design creation process. See you there.